Commander Sarah Chun was drinking her third cup of coffee when the universe changed forever. She sat in the communications center of Luna Station, watching Earth rise over the moon's gray horizon. It was supposed to be a quiet night shift. The most exciting thing that usually happened was tracking space debris or coordinating supply runs to Mars. Then the signal came. At first, it looked like noise. Random static from deep space that meant nothing. But the computer kept beeping, insisting something was there. Sarah leaned forward and adjusted the filters. The static cleared, and she heard something that made her blood run cold. It was a voice, not human. Not anything she had ever heard before. The words came through broken and desperate. The translation software worked overtime, turning alien sounds into English text that scrolled across her screen. As Sarah read, her hands began to shake. "We are the Zephyrian Collective. We speak to the humans of Earth. We have watched your transmissions. We know you exist. We need your help. Our worlds are dying. The Devourers have come, and we cannot stop them." Sarah hit the record button and sat back. This was first contact. Real, actual first contact with an alien species. And they were asking for help. The message continued for 20 minutes. The Zephyrians explained who they were, a peaceful union of 3 different species spread across 12 worlds. They had no armies, only small defense forces. They settled disputes with words, not weapons. They had lived in peace for over 2,000 years. Then the Devourers came. The aliens described them as machines, ancient and terrible. They moved from system to system, taking everything they needed and leaving dead worlds behind. Metal ships that could repair themselves. Computer minds that never got tired or afraid. They had already taken 6 Zephyrian worlds. Soon there would be nothing left. "We have studied your species," the message said. "Your broadcasts show us something we do not understand. You fight each other often. You make war over small things. We thought this made you weak. But now we think it might make you strong. We have no choice left. Will you help us?" The transmission ended with coordinates to their home system and technical data about their technology. Then silence. Sarah sat in the dark room for a long time. Outside, Earth turned slowly in the black sky. Somewhere out there, an entire civilization was being destroyed. And they had asked humans for help. She reached for the emergency communication button. This was way above her pay grade. 2 hours later, Sarah stood in a room full of the most important people on Earth. The president was there by video link. So were generals, admirals, scientists, and politicians. They had all heard the message. Now they had to decide what to do about it. "It could be a trick," said General Morrison. He was old and suspicious of everything. "How do we know these aliens are telling the truth?" "Maybe the Devourers are the good guys." "The message contains mathematical proofs and scientific data," replied Dr. Elizabeth Park, the head of the Space Research Division. "It would take incredible knowledge to fake this." "I believe they are real." Admiral Marcus Webb cleared his throat. He was the head of Earth's tiny space navy, a collection of patrol boats and research ships that had never fought anything bigger than space pirates. "The real question is not whether we believe them. The question is what we can actually do to help." The president leaned forward on the screen. "Admiral, what kind of military force can we deploy?" Webb's face was grim. "Sir, we have 12 patrol vessels armed with mining lasers and basic missiles. 3 research ships with no weapons at all. And maybe 20 cargo haulers that could carry troops if we had any space marines to put on them. We are talking about fighting machines that have already destroyed most of an interstellar civilization. We are not equipped for this. So we do nothing?" asked the president. The room fell silent. Sarah had been quiet during most of the meeting, but now she spoke up. "Sir, with respect, I don't think equipment is the only thing that matters here." Everyone turned to look at her. Sarah felt her face get hot, but she continued. "The Zephyrians said something interesting. They said they thought our fighting made us weak, but now they think it makes us strong. Maybe they see something we don't." Admiral Webb nodded slowly. "Go on, Commander." "These Devourers sound like they fight in a very organized way. They probably expect their enemies to fight the same way. with honor, following rules, trying to minimize casualties. But humans don't always fight fair. We adapt, we use whatever we have. We fight dirty when we have to. Dr. Park pulled up a hologram showing the alien data. The Zephyrians have better technology than us. Their ships are faster, their weapons more powerful, their shields stronger. But they lost. Why? Because they fought like Zephyrians, said Sarah. The Devourers figured them out. But they have never fought humans before. General Morrison shook his head. You're talking about taking civilian ships into battle against machines that have conquered multiple worlds. It is suicide, maybe, said Admiral Webb. But the commander has a point. These Devourers have been fighting the same type of enemy for who knows how long. They have adapted to fight honorable opponents who follow logical tactics. They might not know what to do with an enemy that refuses to play by the rules. The president was quiet for a long moment. How long do we have? Dr. Park checked the alien data. According to this, the Devourers will reach the Zephyrian homeworld in 6 months. If we are going to help, we need to leave soon. What exactly are you proposing? Asked the president. Admiral Webb stood up. We take everything that can fly and carry weapons. Patrol boats, research ships, cargo haulers, mining vessels, even old ships from museums if we have to. We retrofit them for combat and we go help these aliens. With what crew? Asked General Morrison. Our Space Navy has maybe 500 trained personnel. Volunteers, said Sarah. Put out the call. Ask for anyone with space experience who is willing to help. Former military, civilian pilots, mining crews, anyone? Tell them the truth. We are going to try to save an alien civilization, and most of us probably won't come back. The room erupted in arguments. Some people thought it was impossible. Others thought it was their duty to help. The debate went on for hours. Finally, the president called for quiet. I have made my decision. We cannot ignore a plea for help, even if it comes from aliens we have never met. Admiral Webb, you have authorization to assemble whatever fleet you can. Commander Chun, I want you to coordinate with the Zephyrians. Find out everything you can about these Devourers. Sarah felt a mix of excitement and terror. They were really going to do this. They were going to take a bunch of converted civilian ships and try to fight an enemy that had conquered half a galaxy. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood on the observation deck of the converted cargo ship Prometheus, now Admiral Webb's flagship. Through the window she could see the strangest fleet in human history, mining ships with missile pods welded to their hulls, luxury cruise liners covered in armor plating, research vessels carrying nuclear warheads instead of scientific equipment. The volunteers had come from everywhere. Former military pilots who missed the action. Civilian crews who wanted to be part of history, young people looking for adventure. Old people who felt they had nothing left to lose. Almost 5,000. Humans ready to risk everything for aliens they had never seen. Admiral Webb joined her at the window. Think we have a chance, Commander? Sarah watched a mining ship practice weapon drills with a passenger transport. It looked ridiculous. It looked desperate. It looked human. I don't know, sir. But I know. One thing, the Devourers have never faced anything like us before. Webb smiled grimly. Let's hope that is enough. The order came an hour later. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving Earth behind. They were going to war with whatever they could carry and whoever was brave enough to follow. The fleet was not. Built in shipyards with careful planning and military precision. It was forged from desperation, determination, and the very human belief that sometimes someone has to fight, even when the odds are impossible. Captain Elena Vasquez had been hauling cargo between Earth and Mars for 15 years. She knew every bolt and wire on her ship, the Resilient Dawn. It was a good ship, reliable and strong, built to carry tons of supplies across the solar system. It was not built to fight wars, but that was about to change. Elena stood in the main cargo bay watching a team of engineers weld missile launchers where her storage containers used to be. Sparks flew everywhere as they cut through metal and rewired power systems. The smell of hot metal filled the air. Her beautiful cargo ship was being turned into something else entirely. This is insane, said Marcus Rodriguez, her chief engineer. He had been with Elena for 8 years and had never seen anything like this. We are putting military weapons on a civilian transport. The power systems were not designed for this. The hull was not built for combat stress. Elena nodded. She agreed with him, but they had volunteered for this mission. When the call went out asking for ships and crews to help the aliens, Elena had been one of the first to sign up. She could not explain why. Maybe it was because the Zephyrians reminded her of her grandmother, always asking for help, but never demanding it. Maybe it was because she was tired of just hauling cargo and wanted to do something important. I know it is crazy, Marcus, but look around. Everyone here is doing crazy things. Through the bay doors, Elena could see dozens of other ships being converted. The passenger liner Golden Dream was getting armor plating bolted to its hull. The mining ship Iron Hawk was having its drilling lasers modified for combat. Even the old research vessel Newton, which should have been scrapped years ago, was getting new weapons and shields. The work had been going on for 2 months. Every shipyard in the solar system was working around the clock. The engineers had to make it up as they went along because no one had ever tried to turn civilian ships into warships before. Captain Vasquez? A young woman in a blue uniform approached. She had the clean look of someone who had never been in a real spaceship before. I am Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the Space Naval Academy. I have been assigned to your ship as weapons officer. Elena looked her up and down. How old are you, Lieutenant? 24. Ma'am. I graduated top of my class in tactical systems. Have you ever been in a fight? Sarah hesitated. No, ma'am, not a real one. Well, you are about to learn. Marcus, show the lieutenant around. Explain how everything works, especially the parts that might explode. As Sarah and Marcus walked away, Elena turned back to watch the work. She wondered if they were all going to die. The smart part of her brain said yes, probably. The stubborn part that had kept her flying cargo runs for 15 years said maybe not. Dr. Kenji Nakamura arrived 3 hours later. He was the human scientist who had been talking to the Zephyrians, learning about their technology and their enemies. Elena had seen him on the news, but in person he looked tired and worried. Captain Vasquez? I need to install some alien technology on your ship. Elena raised an eyebrow. What kind of technology? Shield generators, faster communication systems, and energy weapons. The Zephyrians are sharing their best equipment with us. Is it safe? Kenji smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. Safer than fighting the Devourers without it. The installation took 2 days. The Zephyrian equipment was beautiful, all smooth curves and soft blue lights. It looked like art compared to the rough human modifications. But Elena noticed something else about it. The alien weapons were precise and efficient. They were designed to disable enemy ships, not destroy them. The shields were meant to protect, not to ram through enemy lines. Doctor, can I ask you something? Elena said as they watched the technicians work. Of course. These aliens, the Zephyrians, they seem like nice people, peaceful. Why are they losing to these Devourer machines? Kenji was quiet for a moment. Because they fight like civilized beings. They try to minimize casualties. They warn their enemies before attacking. They follow rules of war that the Devourers do not care about. And humans? Humans fight to win, by any means necessary. That night, Elena called a meeting of her new crew. Besides Marcus and Lieutenant Kim, she now had 37 people from all over Earth, former military, civilian pilots, engineers, even a few people who had never been in space before but wanted to help. They gathered in what used to be the passenger lounge. Elena looked at their faces. Some were excited, some were scared. All of them had volunteered to risk their lives for aliens they had never met. I want everyone to understand what we are doing, Elena began. We are taking a cargo ship that was designed to carry boxes and turning it into a warship. We are going to fight machines that have destroyed entire worlds. Most of us have never been in combat before. We will probably die. The room was silent. But here's what I think, Elena continued. The Devourers have been fighting the same kind of enemy for a long time. Civilized enemies who follow rules and fight fair. They have never fought humans before. They do not know what we are capable of when we get angry. A young man in the back raised his hand. Captain, what makes you think we can win? Elena smiled. Because we are not going to fight fair. We are going to cheat, lie, and use every dirty trick we can think of. We are going to hit them where they do not expect it and run away before they can hit back. We are going to make them so confused and angry that they make mistakes. Lieutenant Kim spoke up. Ma'am, that does not sound very honorable. Honor is for people who can afford it, Elena replied. We are fighting for the survival of an entire species. There is no honor in letting innocent people die because we were too proud to fight dirty. Over the next month, the crews trained together. Zephyrians sent advisors to help, but they were often confused by human tactics. When Elena suggested using her ship as a battering ram, the alien advisor nearly fainted. But you would destroy your own vessel, the Zephyrian said through the translator. If it takes out an enemy ship, yes. That is not logical. You would lose a perfectly good starship. Sometimes you have to break things to win. The alien shook his head and made notes. On his computer, Elena was sure he was writing that humans were crazy. Admiral Webb visited the ship 2 weeks before they were supposed to leave. He looked older than when Elena had first seen him on the news. The weight of command was wearing on him. How is the crew shaping up, Captain? They are good people, Admiral. Scared but determined. We have been practicing hit-and-run tactics, using the cargo bay as a hangar for small attack craft, and learning to work with the alien technology. Any problems? Elena hesitated. The Zephyrians are worried about our methods. They think we are too aggressive. They keep suggesting we try to negotiate with the Devourers first. Webb laughed, but it sounded bitter. They still do not understand. You cannot negotiate with machines that see all organic life as a waste of resources. The Devourers will not stop until everything is converted into more Devourers. What about our chances, sir? Really, Webb was quiet for a long time. Elena, we are taking a fleet of converted civilian ships crewed mostly by volunteers with no combat experience. We are going to fight an enemy that has conquered multiple star systems. By any reasonable measure, we should lose badly, but the Devourers have made one mistake. They think all enemies are rational. They think everyone will fight the same way the Zephyrians do. They have never faced humans who are protecting something they care about. The night before they left, Elena walked through her ship one last time. The cargo bays were full of missiles and ammunition instead of trade goods. The passenger quarters housed Marines and fighter pilots. The beautiful alien technology hummed quietly alongside. Jury-rigged human weapons. It was not the ship she had fallen in love with 15 years ago. But maybe it was the ship the galaxy needed. Marcus found her on the bridge, staring out at the stars. Second thoughts, Captain, every day. But we are committed now. The Zephyrians are counting on us. Earth is counting on us. Think we will make it back? Elena smiled. Probably not all of us. But maybe that is not the point. Maybe the point is that when someone asked for help, we said yes. The next morning, 347 ships jumped to hyperspace. They were not the most powerful fleet ever assembled. They were not the most advanced or the most experienced. But they were human, and that might be enough. Elena watched Earth disappear behind them and wondered what they would find at the other end of their journey. War, certainly. Death, probably. But maybe, just maybe, they would also find out what humans could accomplish when they stopped worrying about what was possible and started focusing on what was necessary. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, and Captain Elena Vasquez felt her stomach drop with it. Through the viewscreen of the Resilient Dawn, she could see what they were up against. The Devourer fleet was massive. Thousands of dark metal ships hung in perfect geometric formations around New Zephyr, the blue-green world that served as the capital of the Zephyrian Collective. The enemy vessels were sleek and identical, like they had all been stamped out by the same machine, which Elena realized they probably had been. My God, whispered Lieutenant Kim from the weapons station. There are so many of them. Elena activated the communication system. All ships, this is Captain Vasquez. Stay calm and hold formation. We knew this would not be easy. But even Elena felt overwhelmed. The intelligence reports had said the Devourer fleet was large, but seeing it with her own eyes was different. Each enemy ship was bigger than her converted cargo hauler. Their weapons were probably more powerful. Their armor was certainly thicker. Admiral Webb's voice came through the speakers from his flagship, the Prometheus. All captains, listen carefully. We are not going to attack their main fleet directly. That would be suicide. Instead, we are going to do what humans do best. We are going to be unpredictable. Elena pulled up the tactical display. The human fleet looked pathetic compared to the enemy. 347 ships of every size and shape, most of them obviously converted civilian vessels. The Devourers probably thought they were looking at refugees, not a military force. Captain, said Marcus from the engineering station, I am reading massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. The Devourers are bombing the cities. Elena felt anger rise in her chest. Down on that world, innocent people were dying while the machines methodically destroyed everything they had built over thousands of years. The Zephyrians had asked for help, and the human fleet was their only hope. All ships, this is Admiral Webb, execute Plan Chaos. Remember, hit fast, hit hard, and get out before they know what happened. Elena smiled grimly. Plan Chaos was the perfect name for what they were about to do. Instead of attacking the main Devourer fleet, they were going to strike at targets around the edges. Supply ships, command vessels, communication relays. Anything that would confuse and disrupt the enemy. Marcus, are the mining charges ready? Loaded and armed, Captain. 20 nuclear devices disguised as cargo containers. Lieutenant Kim, target the supply convoy on the far side of the moon. We are going to give these machines a surprise. The resilient Dawn accelerated toward its target along with 12 other converted cargo ships. Elena watched the tactical display as the rest of the human fleet scattered in all directions. To the Devourers, it probably looked like the humans were running away in panic. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Elena's group reached the Devourer supply convoy first. 6 large ships moving slowly through space carrying resources from conquered planets back to the main fleet. They had no escort because the Devourers had never needed to worry about attacks on their logistics. All ships release cargo. Elena ordered. The converted cargo haulers opened their bay doors and ejected what looked like regular shipping containers. The metal boxes drifted through space, looking harmless and abandoned. The Devourer ships ignored them completely. Elena counted down in her head. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The nuclear explosions lit up space like new stars. The fake cargo containers detonated all at once, turning the Devourer supply ships into expanding clouds of metal and plasma. Elena felt the resilient Dawn shake as the shockwaves hit them. Direct hits on all targets, reported Lieutenant Kim. Enemy supply convoy is completely destroyed. Good, now we run before their friends show up. The cargo ship group scattered as enemy reinforcements arrived. Elena watched Devourer fighters stream toward their position, but the humans were already gone, jumping to their next target. Across the system, similar attacks were happening everywhere. Captain Harrison's mining ship group used industrial drilling, lasers to punch holes in enemy communication satellites. The converted passenger liner Golden Dream released clouds of metallic chaff that blinded Devourer sensors, while smaller ships snuck through to plant explosives on command vessels. But the attack that got everyone's attention was Captain Morrison's. Charged. Elena watched in amazement as the old mining ship Tough Customer led a group of 6 vessels in what looked like a suicidal assault on a Devourer battle group. The enemy ships opened fire immediately, their precise energy beams cutting through space, but Morrison's ships did not try to dodge. Instead, they flew straight into the enemy formation while their crews evacuated in escape pods. At the last second, the mining ships activated their ramming spikes and crashed into the Devourer vessels at full speed. The collisions were spectacular. Metal screamed against metal as the human ships tore through alien hulls. 3 Devourer ships were destroyed outright. 2 more were badly damaged and had to retreat. "This is Captain Morrison to all ships," came a voice over the radio. "The crew of the Tough Customer is safe in escape pods. We got 3 of them, not bad for a bunch of miners." Elena shook her head in amazement. The humans were actually winning. Not because they had better ships or weapons, but because they were fighting in ways the Devourers could not predict. The enemy tried to adapt. Devourer ships began to spread out, making it harder for the humans to hit multiple targets at once. They started sending escorts with their supply convoys. Their fighters began patrolling in wider patterns, but every time the Devourers changed their tactics, the humans changed theirs too. When the enemy spread out, human ships started attacking in smaller groups. When they added escorts, the humans began using decoy attacks to draw them away from the real targets. The battle lasted 6 hours. By the end, the human fleet had lost 63 ships, but they had accomplished something impossible. The Devourer advance had stopped. Elena watched the enemy fleet pulling back from New Zephyr to regroup. For the first time in months, the planet was not under direct attack. The orbital bombardment had ceased. The machine invasion force was retreating. "Captain," said Lieutenant Kim, "we are receiving a transmission from the planet." The view screen flickered and showed the face of a Zephyrian. Elena had seen pictures before, but this was her first time talking to one directly. The alien looked like a tall, thin human with large eyes and pale blue skin. When it spoke, the translator turned its musical voice into English. "Human ships, this is Counselor Arika of New Zephyr. We cannot express our gratitude. You have saved millions of lives today, but we do not understand your tactics. You destroyed your own ships to damage the enemy. You used weapons in ways they were not designed for. You seem to ignore all military doctrine," Elena smiled. "Counselor, we are not military. Most of us are cargo haulers, miners, and passenger transport crews. We do not know military doctrine. We just know how to get things done." The Zephyrian looked confused. "But how did you know your methods would work?" "We did not. We just tried things until something worked. That is what humans do." Admiral Webb's voice came over the fleet communication channel. "All ships, excellent work today, but do not celebrate yet. We hurt them, but we did not destroy them. The Devourers will study what happened here. They will adapt their tactics. The next battle will be harder." Elena knew he was right. Through the view screen, she could see the Devourer fleet regrouping in the outer system. The machines were probably analyzing every moment of the battle, trying to understand how the humans had defeated them. But Elena was not worried. Let them analyze. Let them try to figure out human tactics. The truth was, there were no human tactics. There was just determination, creativity, and the willingness to try anything that might work. "Marcus, how are our systems? Weapons are good, engines are good, life support is good? We lost some armor plating, but nothing critical." The alien. "Shield generators saved our lives at least 3 times. Lieutenant Kim, casualty report for the fleet? 63 ships lost, but most of the crews escaped in pods. We are picking up survivors now. Total human casualties are surprisingly light considering what we just did." Elena nodded. They had been lucky today. The Devourers had not expected human tactics and had been caught off guard. Next time would be different, but as she watched the rescue ships collecting escape pods from destroyed vessels, Elena felt something she had not expected. Pride. The human fleet had come here as volunteers, most of them with no military training. They had faced impossible odds and won. They had proven that sometimes the best weapon was not the most advanced technology or the most experienced crew. Sometimes the best weapon was the willingness to do whatever it took to protect innocent people. The Devourers were about to learn a hard lesson about humanity. When humans decided to fight for something, they did not give up. They did not retreat. They kept coming until either they won or there was nothing left of them to keep fighting, and there was still plenty left of the human fleet. 3 months after the first battle, Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of her new ship and tried not to think about how many friends she had lost. The resilient Dawn was gone, destroyed 2 weeks ago when she rammed it into a Devourer command ship to save a group of wounded Zephyrian refugees. Now she commanded the Defiant Spirit, a captured enemy vessel that her crew had learned to operate through trial and error. The war had changed everything. The Devourers were no longer the unstoppable force they had been before. They still had more ships and better technology, but they had learned to fear human tactics. More importantly, they had started making mistakes. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from Admiral Webb," said Ensign Torres from the communication station. Torres was only 19 years old, one of hundreds of young volunteers who had joined the fleet after news of the human victories reached Earth. Elena activated the view screen. Admiral Webb looked tired and older than his years, but his eyes still burned with determination. Behind him, she could see the bridge of his third flagship. The first two had been destroyed in battles across 4 different star systems. "Elena, how's your new ship treating you?" She looked around at the strange alien controls that her human crew had modified with duct tape and improvised switches. "Like a hostile alien machine that does not want us here, but we are making it work." Webb smiled grimly. "Good, because I have a mission for you. Intelligence reports say the Devourers are massing for a major offensive. They want to take back the Proxima system and use it as a staging ground to attack Earth itself." Elena felt her blood run cold. Proxima had been their first major victory after New Zephyr. The human fleet had captured 3 Devourer worlds there and turned them into supply bases. If the enemy retook Proxima, they would have a clear path to humanity's home system. "What do you need us to do?" "I want you to take your battle group and hit their supply lines. Make them worry about protecting their logistics instead of planning attacks. You know the drill." Elena nodded. She knew the drill very well. Hit fast, hit hard, and disappear before the enemy could respond. It was the same strategy they had been using for months, and it was slowly wearing down the Devourer fleet, but Elena also knew the cost. Every battle meant losing ships and people. The human fleet was now down to less than 200 vessels, and most of those were patched together from salvaged parts and desperate improvisation. "Admiral, how long can we keep this up? We are losing ships faster than Earth can send replacements." Webb was quiet for a moment. "I know, Elena, but we have to keep fighting. The Zephyrians are finally starting to learn human tactics. Some of their ships are fighting alongside us now, and our victories are inspiring other species to resist the Devourers." "Other species?" "The Keth Dominion declared war on the Devourers last week. The Varani clans are mobilizing their fleets. Word is spreading that the machines can be beaten. We just have to hold on long enough for help to arrive." After the transmission ended, Elena called a meeting of her senior staff. They gathered in what used to be the enemy ship's briefing room, sitting on chairs that had been designed for machine intelligences and modified for human use. "All right, people, we have our orders. We are going to hit the Devourer supply convoy, heading for the Proxima system. Intelligence says it is 20 ships carrying weapons and raw materials." Lieutenant Kim, now Elena's executive officer, studied the tactical display. "That is a lot of firepower for a supply run." "They are learning to protect their logistics." "Then we will have to be smarter than they are," Elena replied. "Suggestions?" Chief Engineer Rodriguez, who had survived the destruction of the Resilient, Dawn and transferred to Elena's new ship, raised his hand. "What if we do not attack the convoy directly? What if we attack the destination instead?" "Explain." "The convoy is heading to a Devourer shipyard in the Kepler system. If we destroy the shipyard, the supplies become useless. And shipyards are usually not as well defended as military convoys." Elena considered this. It was risky, but most human tactics were risky. That was what made them effective against an enemy that calculated odds and expected rational behavior. "How many ships do we have available?" 15 functional vessels, reported Kim. 3 captured Devourer ships like this one, 8 converted human vessels, and 4 new ships from Earth. Against a shipyard that probably has at least 50 defensive platforms and patrol ships. "Yes, ma'am." Elena looked around the room at her officers. They were all young, most of them barely out of their teens. The experienced captains and admirals had mostly died in the early battles. The war was being fought by people who had learned tactics through trial and error, success and failure, victory and loss. All right, we will do it, but we are going to need help. 2 days later, Elena's battle group approached the Kepler shipyard along with an unexpected ally. The Zephyrian light cruiser Harmony had volunteered to join the attack. Its captain, Commander Velna, had been studying human tactics and wanted to put them into practice. Elena opened a communication channel to the alien ship. "Commander Velna, are your crew ready for this?" The Zephyrian's musical voice came through the translator. "Captain Vasquez, my people have learned much from watching humans fight. We understand now that sometimes one must be willing to sacrifice everything to save what matters most." "Good. Remember, we are not trying to fight a fair battle. We are trying to win by any means necessary. We understand. My crew has painted messages on our hull as humans do. We have written not one step back in both our language and yours," Elena smiled. The Zephyrians were finally learning what it meant to fight like humans. The attack began at dawn, ship time. Elena's force split into 3 groups and approached the shipyard from different directions. The plan was simple: cause as much confusion and damage as possible, then escape before the Devourers could organize a proper response, but the enemy was ready for them. "Captain, I am reading massive energy signatures from the shipyard," reported Torres. "They have at least 30 defensive platforms online, plus a full squadron of patrol ships." "They were expecting us," said Kim grimly. Elena studied the tactical display. The Devourers had learned from previous human attacks. The shipyard was heavily defended, and enemy reinforcements were already moving to surround her small fleet. "All ships, this is Defense Spirit. The enemy knows we are coming, but we are here now. We finished the mission." The battle was brutal from the start. Devourer energy beams lanced through space, and human ships began taking heavy damage immediately. Elena watched the converted freighter New Hope explode under concentrated fire, taking its crew of 30 volunteers with it, but the humans adapted quickly. Instead of trying to fight through the defensive screen, they began using their own ships as weapons. The mining vessel Iron Will deliberately rammed a defensive platform, destroying both vessels but clearing a path for the others. Commander Velna's ship fought with a fury that Elena had never seen from the peaceful Zephyrians before. The Harmony dove between 2 Devourer patrol ships, firing at point-blank range while its crew shouted battle cries that needed no translation. "Captain," called Rodriguez from engineering, "I have an idea, but you are not going to like it." "Tell me." "The shipyard's main reactor is heavily shielded. But if we overload our own reactor and ram it directly, the explosion should chain react through their entire facility." Elena felt her stomach drop. "That would destroy our ship and kill everyone aboard." "Yes, ma'am. But it would also cripple Devourer ship production in this entire sector." Elena looked around the bridge at her young crew. They were scared, but they were also determined. They had volunteered for this mission knowing they might not come back. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare to abandon ship. We are going to ram the shipyard reactor." For the next 10 minutes, Elena's crew worked frantically to evacuate the ship while she piloted it toward the shipyard's core. Escape pods launched one by one, carrying her people to safety while she stayed at the controls. "Captain," Kame's voice over the radio from her escape pod, "you need to get out of there. Someone has to guide the ship in. The automated systems are not good enough." Elena watched the massive shipyard grow larger on her view screen. Devourer energy beams hammered her ship, but she kept flying straight toward the reactor complex at the facility's heart. At the last second, she activated her own escape pod and ejected from the ship. Behind her, the Defiant Spirit slammed into the shipyard reactor at full speed. The explosion lit up half the star system. The chain reaction Elena's engineer had predicted tore through the shipyard, destroying construction bays, manufacturing facilities, and defensive platforms. In 30 seconds, the Devourers lost their most important production facility in this part of the galaxy. Elena's rescue came 6 hours later, when the surviving human ships found her escape pod drifting in space. As they pulled her aboard the captured cruiser Vengeance, she looked back at the wreckage of the shipyard. "Did we get it?" she asked. "Oh yes," replied Captain Santos, the Vengeance's commander. "Intelligence estimates it will take them 2 years to rebuild what we destroyed today. And Captain, there is more good news." "What?" "The Keth Dominion fleet arrived at Proxima 3 hours ago. 200 ships, all equipped with human-designed weapons and tactics. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of her 4th ship and stared at the massive structure that filled the view screen. The Devourer central core was the size of a small moon, a black metal sphere covered with spikes and weapon platforms. This was where the machine intelligence had started, where it controlled its entire fleet from across the galaxy, and this was where the war would end, one way or another. "All ships report ready, Captain," said Lieutenant Torres from the communication station. The young ensign was now a full lieutenant, aged by months of constant battle. Like everyone else in the human fleet, he had learned to fight by watching friends die and making sure their sacrifices meant something. Elena activated the fleet communication channel. "All ships, this is Captain Vasquez aboard the Last Stand. In 1 hour, we begin the final assault on the Devour home system. Most of us will not survive this battle. But if we succeed here today, no other species will have to face what the Zephyrians faced. No other worlds will be consumed by these machines." She paused, looking around her bridge at the crew that had followed her through 4 ships and dozens of battles. Some were original volunteers from Earth, others were Zephyrian warriors who had learned human tactics. A few were from other species that had joined the fight after seeing that the Devourers could be beaten. "Remember what we learned at New Zephyr," Elena continued. "The enemy expects rational tactics. They calculate odds and assume we will try to preserve our ships and crews. They have never understood that humans will sacrifice everything to protect others." Admiral Webb's voice came over the command channel from his flagship, the Prometheus 3. "All captains, prepare to execute protocol. Omega, may whatever gods you believe in forgive us for what we are about to do." Protocol Omega was the most desperate plan any military force had ever conceived. Instead of trying to fight through the Devourer defenses, the human fleet would turn every ship into a guided missile. Crews would evacuate at the last moment while their vessels crashed into specific targets on the central core. It was a plan that guaranteed the destruction of the entire human fleet. But it was also the only plan that might actually work. Elena looked at the tactical display. The Human Alliance fleet had grown to over 800 ships, but most were damaged and running low on supplies. They faced a Devourer defense force of 3,000 vessels, plus the Central Core's own weapons that could destroy planets. "Captain," said Commander Velna from his station. The Zephyrian had transferred to Elena's ship after his own vessel was destroyed at the Battle of Rigel. "My people have a saying, when the storm comes, the wise tree bends. But sometimes a tree must stand firm and break the wind itself. Is that what we are doing? Breaking the wind?" "I believe so. The Devourers have conquered for thousands of years because no species has ever been willing to sacrifice everything to stop them. Today, that changes." The battle began badly. Devourer ships swarmed out from the central core like angry insects, their energy weapons tearing through the Alliance fleet. Elena watched dozens of ships die in the first few minutes, their crews vaporizing in balls of superheated plasma, but the humans did not retreat. Instead, they pushed forward, using their ships as shields for the vessels behind them. The converted cargo hauler Determination took hit after hit, while smaller ships used its bulk as cover to get closer to their targets. "All ships, commence." "Final approach," ordered Admiral Webb. "Remember, we are not trying to win a battle. We are trying to deliver a message." Elena's ship was part of the third wave, assigned to attack the Central Core's main communication array. If they could destroy that, the Devourers across the galaxy would lose coordination with their command center. "Attention crew of the Last Stand," Elena announced over the ship's intercom. "Prepare for evacuation. All personnel to escape pods." We have 10 minutes before impact. The bridge emptied quickly as her crew moved to their assigned pods. Only Elena remained, her hands on the ship's controls as she guided it through the chaos of battle toward their target. "Captain," came Lieutenant Torres's voice over the radio from his escape pod, "you need to evacuate too." "Someone has to make sure we hit the target," Elena replied. "The navigation systems are damaged. I have to fly this manually." Through the view screen she could see other human ships making their final runs. The mining vessel Iron Heart exploded against a weapon platform, clearing the way for 3 smaller ships to reach the central core's hull. The passenger liner Golden Dreams, now painted with the names of every crew member who had died serving aboard her, rammed through a defensive screen and detonated its reactor inside a critical system node, but the attack that changed everything came from an unexpected source. Commander Sarah-Chung, the communications officer who had first received the Zephyrian distress call, was commanding a small squadron of captured Devourer ships. Instead of using them as battering rams, she had programmed them to broadcast a virus into the Central Core's computer network. "All ships, this is Commander Chun," came her voice over the radio. "I am uploading a data package into the Devourer command system. It contains every human battle record, every tactical innovation, every sacrifice we have made. I want them to understand what they faced before we destroy them." Elena smiled grimly as she watched Chian's ships dive into the Central Core's defensive network. The virus would not destroy the Devourers, but it would give them something they had never experienced before: confusion. For a few crucial minutes, the machine intelligence would be trying to process human logic, trying to understand why anyone would choose to die for strangers. That confusion was all the human fleet needed. Elena's ship was now only minutes from impact. Around her, the Central Core's weapons fired desperately, but most of the defensive systems were focused on the larger threats. Her converted research vessel was too small to worry about. They were wrong. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the human vessel Last Stand," she announced on all frequencies as her ship approached the communication array. "We came here because someone asked for help. We stayed because it was the right thing to do. We die here so that others might live free." She activated the ship's final weapon, a nuclear device that had been mounted where the escape pods used to be. Elena had chosen to stay with her ship to make sure the mission succeeded. The explosion tore through the Central Core's communication array and spread into the main processing centers. Chain reactions cascaded through the massive structure as human ships struck target after target. The mining ship Tough Customer 2 crashed into the main reactor. The converted cruise liner piece through strength detonated inside the central command node. One by one, human ships died to destroy pieces of the Devourer home base. Each explosion was a statement. This is what happens when you threaten innocent people. This is what happens when you underestimate the power of species willing to sacrifice for each other. Admiral Webb's ship was among the last to make its run. The Prometheus 3, battered and burning, limped toward the Central Core's power distribution center while Devourer fighters swarmed around it. "All surviving ships, this is Admiral Webb," came his final transmission. "It has been an honor serving with you. Tell Earth that when aliens asked for help, humanity answered. Tell them we did not build a fleet. We forged one in fire and fury, and it was enough." The Prometheus 3 disappeared in a nuclear fireball that cracked the Central Core from end to end. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in thousands of years, the Devourer's Central Core was dark. Across the galaxy machine, fleets suddenly found themselves without orders, without coordination, without purpose. The war was over. 3 days later, the few surviving human ships limped back toward Allied space. Elena was not among them. Her sacrifice, along with those of thousands of others, had bought victory for species they had never met and worlds they would never see, but their sacrifice had meaning. The Zephyrian Collective began rebuilding their worlds, the Keth Dominion, and Varani clans formed a new alliance dedicated to protecting smaller species. Across the galaxy the word spread. When faced with extinction, humans had chosen to die rather than let others suffer. On Earth, Construction began on humanity's first true battle fleet, but Admiral Marcus Webb, now retired and serving as chief of naval design, made sure each new ship carried the name of one of the converted vessels that had come before, the destroyer Elena Vesquez, the cruiser Resilient Dawn, the battleship Prometheus. They were not just names on hulls. They were reminders that the greatest fleets are not built in shipyards with blueprints and schedules. They are forged in the hearts of people willing to risk everything for strangers, in the fury of those who refuse to let innocents suffer, and in the fire of battle where ordinary people become heroes. The aliens had asked for help, and humanity had answered. The price had been terrible, but the message was clear. In a galaxy full of species concerned with their own survival, there was one that would fight and die for others. And that made all the difference.